Second one first. I've not announced. I'm certainly seriously thinking about it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I've enjoyed my work so far, but I have not made any announcement to that effect. The second one was pretty well, or the first one actually, was pretty well described by David. One thing that was left off in his description, and I'll review that, and in case you don't recall, but one of the important things that we do is we hire very key players in the county government. And I think one of the most important decisions that we made, and he'll flush, is hiring Philip Morley. And that was a very complicated process. We had a headhunting firm look about and find a very fine field of candidates. And among that field of very good candidates, we selected Philip Morley, and we were very glad that he's come with us. And I think that most people would agree that he's doing a terrific job. But as David said, the other thing we do is that we pass the budget, the county budget, and of course where the money goes is where things happen. So it's pretty important that we, through our assignment of funds, determine what services we can give to the people. We also make, as you know, the laws, regulations within the county. It's interesting that there's a great deal of restriction on what we can actually do in terms of laws. Any laws or ordinances that we make can be overthrown, as you know, by the court system, or there are other regulatory agencies in the state, such as the Growth Management Hearings Board, which may or may not agree with our decisions. We listen very carefully, of course, to what the citizens have to say when we do make these regulations. Another thing that I think we do that's not particularly in any written form is we try to encourage the employees of the county to do their best job. Not by riding them, but by letting them know that we really care about what they're doing and being as supportive as we can. Because in times like this, a government job is not necessarily a secure job. And we want to keep the very best employees that we have. And so anything we can do to continue to boost the morale, I think is a very important part of our job. By the way, one of the things we do to do that is to be good models and to be hard workers ourselves. On weekends, it's a rare weekend that I don't bump into one of my fellow county commissioners getting work done at the courthouse. Not because they're disorganized, but because when you're at a courthouse that's empty, you can get a lot of work done.
Yeah, for those of you guys.
I got a follow-up real fast, Mike.
Okay, we got 13 minutes.
You haven't announced. That doesn't mean you can't tonight.
Thank you.
That wasn't a question.
David Sullivan.
I just wanted to add something about the Memorial Field. I'm trying to remember, I think it was back when we did an evaluation of all the city and county owned, I think in fact it was all the publicly owned property in the county for the housing action plan, and looking at where we could cooperate and do affordable housing, that we looked at all the property, and the issue of Memorial Field came up, that same question, isn't there restrictions on that? And things were done a lot more informally in earlier times, and when they looked at my understanding, because I gave this to our county administrator previously, what they came back with is there's no legal restrictions on what we can do with Memorial Field. That does not mean there isn't a huge community expectation and a community memory that there was restrictions and that this was to be a dedicated memorial to our veterans, and that there's an expectation of a lot of people that that be honored. So I don't know what happened back then, or whether this didn't get, in the legal writing because people just never thought it would happen, or what happened at that point in time. But the expectation is certainly that something was understood then.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you're sitting on a liability of at least $1 million in growing. How are we going to handle that as a county over time?
I think you might go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to talk about Memorial Field from the perspective of somebody who's lived here his entire life, and Joe is aware of this. It's a very emotional issue for the people of Jefferson County. And I say Jefferson County because the Chimacum High School is played there. There's something incredibly important for these young kids to be able to play under the lights. I played under the lights at Memorial Field. And the other issue is, if it's a legal memorial or not, it is a memorial. It has been a memorial since about 1947, I think it is, to the people who died, men and women who died in the Second World War and the Vietnam War. And those people who died in the Vietnam War were friends of mine. So it's not a simple issue of whether there's a legal right to keep it or not keep it a memorial and keep it there. It's almost sacred to some people in Fort County.
Thank you, Phil. I think the issue is certainly going to continue to draw attention. I don't expect that there will be, obviously this is not an expectation of answers for tonight, but given the fact the number of questions that were on that and the articles about the cost of it in the future and so forth and certainly. There's a question here which I think is a grounder, since you're not the PUD, but it's water quality. Is there fluoride in our water? Are there plans to add to this? As an individual on a well, and I don't put anything in my well water, I don't need to worry about it. But is it safe to say that that's the responsibility of the individual public utility district if you have water from them?
It is, and I was on the PUD. There are work plans, and there's no plans to date, to my knowledge.
Okay.
And the city does not have fluoridation.
Okay. It's one of the many, many junior taxing districts that you have on your property tax. Sheriff Hernandez, who manages the animal shelter for this area? What is the future plan for support of this facility? 9 minutes.
The Sheriff's Office in 2005 got animal services. We still continue to manage animal services. And when I talk about that core of volunteers, I have 75 volunteers that provide the equivalent of 3.5 FTEs at animal services. Through the donation trust funds that I've set up, I am gradually decreasing the general fund contribution to animal services, and the community is stepping up. In the recent years, the 501c3, the Jefferson County Humane Society, has been formed to assist, and their goal is to every year eat away at that general fund contribution to eventually become the Jefferson County Humane Society. That's where we're at with animal services. And it is countywide, and we also provide contract services to the city as well.
Under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, great. This, I think, crosses between two jurisdictions, but it's Lower Hadlock Boat Launch, moved to Irondale Park, decrease in silting, expanded parking area, boat haven open 20 foot at south end to increase flushing. So I don't know whether that's part of parks and part of the Port of Fort Townsend. Anybody want to address? There seems to be anyway an issue here. Is there a consideration of relocating the boat launch that's currently at Fort Hadlock that silts up and move it to the new park? Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I'm just a citizen, but I just recently finished reading the master plan for Irondale Park, and they did a study a few years ago about that and discovered that it would not work to put it at the Irondale Park because they have pretty much the same ecological